Thank you all for being here today. My name is Jamie Wool. I am the managing partner for the North Central Market of RSM. RSM is proud to be a sponsor for such a great event with an amazing panel of industry experts. I want to thank each of the panelists for taking the time to give us an update on the latest consumer insights and trends, and the participants who are able to join us today. Looking forward to a great event.
Well, hello and welcome. Good to see everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to Studio TCB Insights conversation about innovation in the consumer product industry. I'm sorry, I have things dinging on my computer, which is just a hazard of Zoom that we still haven't gotten over a year and a half later. I think I'm good to go now. I'm Allison Kaplan. I am the editor-in-chief of Twin Cities Business Magazine, and I am thrilled to be with you today to have a conversation about the latest in consumer insights and trends from three complete experts in the consumer products industry. We're going to dive into the specifics of how major food brands and restaurant businesses are adapting and shifting preferences from the accelerated adoption of technology to successful subscription and rewards programs to strategies for re-engaging with customers in person. We've brought together a couple of experts today to ensure your business is at its best this holiday season and ready to tackle 2022. For those of you joining us today live, feel free to use the comment section on your screen to ask the panelists questions during the webinar. We'll monitor them and we'll get to as many of your questions as we can. Feel free to also network and talk to each other too. Sometimes that's the best part of these events. Now, let's welcome our three panelists to the screen. Hello, hello. Thank you for being here. Well, let me just introduce you to our esteemed panelists. We'll start with Gay Demery, who has been with Taco Bell for 29 years and with Border Foods since its inception in 1996. Border Foods, for those of you who might not know, is ranked among the top 4 Taco Bell franchises, and this is the second largest privately owned franchisee in the entire Taco Bell system. As Director of Operations Excellence, she helps to ensure Border Foods utilizes processes, technology, equipment to improve operational performance and enhance the team and guest experience in their restaurants. She supports the implementation of all programs and plays a key role in the company's success as they continuously strive for excellence. Gay is joined by Matt Reiter from Caribou Coffee. Hi, Matt. Matt is the Vice President of Product and Merchandising at Caribou. His team is responsible for all of Caribou's food and beverage product innovation, merchandising, as well as the company's sourcing and supportive operations. Prior to joining Caribou, Matt's experience included years with PwC, Amazon, and Target. Matt lives in Woodbury with his wife and 2 daughters, but it looks like maybe he's at the office today or he just has a lot of coffee behind him at all times. Last but not least, we're excited to have Karen Gallivan. Karen is a tax partner with RSM. In May of 2019, Karen was selected as senior analyst in RSM's Cutting Edge Eminence program, which positioned her to understand, forecast, and communicate economic, business, and technology trends shaping the consumer products industry. Karen and I had a great conversation a couple weeks ago, and I was just fascinated by everything she knows about how we behave as consumers. You're going to love hearing her insights. Karen is also a local leader for the RSM Women's Employees Network Group, STAR, which develops a culture that sponsors and advances women at all stages of their career. So we are in good hands. Thank you, all three of you, for being with us today. Well, let's start with this. Let's just kind of review, if we can, the last 2 years. So much has changed about how we think about consumer behavior and the experience, how we shop, how we buy things, how we consume everything. What is, if you had to name it, what's one shift that you think presents the biggest opportunity for your business or for the food and beverage industry in general? Matt, do you want to start?
Yeah, thank you, Allison. It's a great question, and as I reflected on that and the experience for Caribou over the last 18 months, one of the biggest I think shifts that we've seen, and everyone likely has seen this, and also that presents the biggest opportunity, is the shift in how consumers, or in our case, guests, as we call them, want to engage with and order. And really, this shift to ordering out of store has been tremendous, and it happened almost overnight. Meaning, folks still found their way to, to make the purchases they needed to make, but they did it in a very different way. And so, what that means in Caribou's world was, a heavy utilization of the drive-through, more so than we'd ever seen. Utilization of technology, meaning our app to place your order ahead. Contactless payment became critically important, very immediately. And then also the online space, which was, obviously already growing, went through tremendous growth. So I think about that shift in how guests wanted to order changed almost immediately, and it's persisted. And I would say it's likely to persist and continue. So what it's meant for Caribou is we've accelerated work that we already had in progress with respects to our app, and how guests are able to order ahead, and what they're able to do with that process, enabling new ways for them to pick up their products, meaning pick it up at curbside versus having to come into the store, which was a capability that we'd contemplated and then very quickly built last year, and subsequently advanced the capability. We've recently introduced a subscription coffee program. So from our direct-to-consumer website, we've enabled a new way to, on a recurring basis, easily fulfill guests' coffee routines at home. And then I think importantly, advancing our drive-through capability to really focus on speed and ultimate convenience for guests, so that they can come and quickly get in and out and move on with their day, and do whatever it is they had in their plans, has been our focus area. And I think it will continue to be our focus area as we, among many, as we think about how do we continue to deliver on what guests are looking for in this new environment.
Right. I guess the big takeaway is people still need their coffee fix. They're going to get it one way or the other. So that's good for you. And I know we'll be talking more about both drive-through and subscription. Gay, I'm curious, from the point of view of tacos, has it been similar?
Absolutely. Pretty spot on with the things that Matt had said as well. It certainly is about the contactless experience, and that's what our consumers are asking for and wanting. And so we have to find ways to accommodate that, as well as the digital channels. Like he said, it pretty much happened instantaneously. We had to adapt because the consumers were coming to us saying, hey, here's how we want to order. We still want the product. We still crave Taco Bell, all of those types of things. So how are we going to get it to them? And we have some creative ways that we're looking to do that even in the future.
Great. Karen, I'm curious, from all of your research, and you're talking to so many different businesses like Caribou and like Border Foods and Taco Bell, what are you hearing on a broader scale?
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with omni-channel, right? That, first it was just out of safety and necessity that you were no longer going into places and ordering food and things along those lines, or whatever consumer goods you needed. Now it's really become a part of the customer experience. And where companies have really been successful is not only offering both an in-store experience, an online experience, an app experience, but then furthermore, using the data that they gather from that to really be able to predict what their customers want next. And that's what the huge opportunity is in this. It's that ultimate consumer really wants you to know what they want, and you have this volume of data that you're getting between online ordering, even if you're doing it through a third-party order system, through your own data. I mean, the amount of data that we now have on our customers is huge. And if you can really tap into what that is, it really gives consumer products companies a competitive advantage against their competitors when they really understand what their client ultimately wants to experience.
Well, let's talk about that word that you brought up, Karen, omni-channel. We hear it all the time in everything related to any sort of consumer goods. What does it mean to each of you, and how does, how does it impact the way you're thinking about your deliverables? Matt?
I think for me and, on behalf of Caribou, omnichannel really, it's a way for us to ensure that our brand and Caribou experience is available to guests, where they are, where they want to be, and as Karen was saying, how they want to engage with us. And so we have many channels of business, and had and still have many channels of business. And over the last 2 years, it's become very apparent that diversification has been critically important to not only our business success, but also allowing us to, as Gay said, creatively find ways to still deliver coffee to people. And so whether it's, come to a coffee shop, a proper physical location, or buy it in a grocery store, buy it online, it's a way for us to just ensure that we can deliver the brand experience and the coffee experience to our guests and customers, wherever they are, which it's looked radically different over the last 18 months. Some of that may come back to something that looks more like 2019 or prior, but some of it may not. And so, diversity of our channels, it protects us, it creates a great guest experience. And, we're very fortunate to have as many channels as we have in different ways to engage with guests, whether it's at home, at work, or, anywhere else they might be.
Right. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter which path they're picking as long as they are ultimately picking you.
And I would say, the way that we think about it is we certainly want to make it very easy to find Caribou, to choose Caribou. That's, convenience is paramount. And also the experience, the experience of the brand should be very consistent, but the experience of the product might look a little different depending on which channel you're in. And, we try to think through what might a guest want in this particular environment or channel that they're in, and then deliver the product and experience that is most appropriate for that particular channel environment.
Right. Gay, talk about how you think about an omni-channel approach to your business with Border Foods.
I think it really comes down to being scalable and being able to apply to a broad reach of consumers. Take that beyond a consumer, that also goes to an employee base, that also goes to protecting the brand and all of those things, growing the brand. But being able to have different avenues and different ways that people can enjoy, our product, so to speak, and get that into the hands of others. Again, those third channels, those third parties for delivery have just grown enormously overnight, and trying to work through how do you integrate all of that? How do you make sure that it's set up for success? So it's an ease on behalf of the consumer to order, on behalf of our team to make, on behalf of those drivers so that they want to drive and they want to pick up those products and deliver your items to the guest.
Karen, any advice that you give to other brands, to the brands that you consult with, just as far as, how to think about the whole experience? So it's not just about one channel, it's about the entire brand and what you're delivering.
No, absolutely. And I think, there were, for a while there, I think people thought no one was ever going to go back to a store or a restaurant ever again, right? And what the truth is that even a particular consumer may want to have that storefront experience on sometimes, and they might want to have that delivery other times. They may want to go through that drive-through at even other times. So it's really my best advice when you're talking about omni-channel is really understanding the data that you're collecting on your consumers, and really making sure that you are really being able to harness that data, and it's not reactive but proactive, so that you're able to meet them where they are. Matt, I love how you say, where you have to meet your customer where they are at a particular time, and that same customer may be in different places at different times, right? That same person, but to really know what they want and how they want it is very, very important.
Gay, a few months ago, we reported, and man, I think it's still one of our top 10 stories online, that Border Foods was building the Taco Bell of the future right here in the Twin Cities in Brooklyn Park, right?
Correct.
Okay. Tell us what the Taco Bell of the future is going to look like, and how much was this influenced by the pandemic and by that shift in shopping and ordering habits?
Absolutely. So certainly it's pretty exciting as we prepare to build what's hopefully, in our eyes, the most innovative restaurant that's going to exist out there, and be kind of a state of the future, if you will. Yes, indeed, it was driven by the pandemic and the insights from the customers, the growth of the delivery channels, and really with two key things in mind, and that's the contactless guest experience and how can we deliver to more than just one drive-through lane? How can we have multiple experiences through the drive-through? So this new concept is totally different. It's about a 3,000 square foot building that's going to be 2 stories. And the kitchen is actually on the second level. And so it will have very little interaction with the guest. The building is going to feature 4 drive-through lanes. So one lane is going to be the traditional drive-through experience that consumers in our business are used to. And the other 3 lanes are really geared towards those delivery channels, whether it's mobile or delivery orders, et cetera, in which they'll have an opportunity to come and pick up product. There's a staging area because obviously this is all brand new and people will come and not know how to use the concept. So we're pretty excited about it. The guests are going to scan their order with the QR code and then pick it up through a proprietary lift system that we have created and developed. So it's pretty exciting, pretty innovative, and we'll have little guest interaction, but certainly trying to leverage growing those business channels and those delivery channels. So stay tuned. We broke ground in August. As you said, it was a pretty hot topic, and should open by summer of 2022.
I'm just picturing tacos like shooting through tunnels, straight into vehicles. It's going to be amazing. I know it's not quite like that, but it looks pretty cool. Matt, I want to ask you about loyalty programs. I know how important that's been to Caribou and in terms of building that consumer loyalty. What are you learning about what your customers want? How have you changed and refined the program, and what advice would you give others about creating a successful loyalty program?
I think as Karen mentioned, there certainly is a tremendous amount of data that we can gather through not only for everyday business, but also through our loyalty program. So I think the key thing that we have been able to and will continue to maximize is the information that we can gather allows us to create and tailor really segmented and very personalized experiences for our guests who are members of our loyalty program. And that could be anything from communication to a promotional offer to awareness about new product or a partnership that we've established. So certainly there's an aspect of product and promotion and reward that goes along with the loyalty program. But I would say that we also know there's tremendous value for both Caribou and the guests to think about their entire experience with our brand. And the loyalty sort of platform is one, it's the way in which we can gather this information and communicate, but it's thinking about the whole brand experience. And that's everything from, the communications that go out and the personalization of them, but then also what happens in the app when they engage with us, which is, most commonly how someone would transact with us if they are a loyalty member. And so we think about, what should that experience be? How do we present product? How do we present other aspects of the brand experience through that ordering? And it's also how we've learned and heard from guests about the types of features and maybe newness that they'd like for us to bring forward. So it's what Karen said, it's really utilizing the information to continue to advance our experiences for our guests and teams so that we're delivering what they're looking for.
Can you give any examples of something that you added, a feature or something because the customers were asking for it?
I think a feature that I would say that we added because we think it fits incredibly well with Caribou and Caribou's purpose statement, and what we think resonates really well with Caribou's guests is not immediately recently, but fairly recently, added the ability for guests to share a perk with other people. So that means I can, earn points through my purchases at Caribou. And then when I've earned enough to have a perk that I could redeem, rather than redeem it for myself, I can share that to someone else by way of, an action in the app, then directs to, a free coffee or a free, beverage of their choice or bakery item. So you can really make someone else's day by passing on, a perk that you've earned through your engagement. And I think that that's a feature that isn't, necessarily driving additional revenue for us, but it's such at the core of, what we stand for and what we hope to achieve, which is making people's days and sparking chain reactions of good. And so that feature is something that, we're really excited about, and guests have responded incredibly positively to.
I feel super selfish because I've never gifted my free coffee to anyone. I just always take it myself. And it is such a day maker. It's amazing how motivating it is to earn those points, and like how excited you get when you get a free coffee. It's so simple.
And it's quite simple to share. So if you wanted to do it, it's very easy within the app. And, it's just, I love the feature. And particularly if, someone who maybe doesn't know Caribou well, you can introduce them, for us, we can introduce them to the brand, or you can just really make someone's day. You can brighten their day, you can start their day out in a great way. So I hope that's a good example. That's something that's very top of mind for me.
It's a great example. I resolved to share too, Matt. I'm going to share my perks. Karen, I know that you track this, and I know you've got some great examples. When you think about companies that have done a good job of, fostering that loyalty or making customers care, who comes to mind? What are some brands that you think are doing it really well?
Oh gosh, there's lots of brands that are doing it well. I do think that it's, I hate to point out one specifically, but what I will say are some of the things that they are doing, right? I think when we used to think of convenience pre-pandemic, it was how quick could you get in and out of a store and things along those lines. And now is how easy is your app to use? How quickly is your delivery coming? What kind of quality is the food that you're getting? I know we're kind of focusing on food here today, but even with all consumer products, when you're ordering it, how quickly is that turning around? And so those companies that can really make that experience better than what you expected is great. Whether it's say it gets shipped sooner than you think it's going to, which in today's environment is super challenging with transportation costs what they are and supply chain disruptions what they are. But if you can really kind of connect from that way, there's a lot of different things we've seen. Also from a labor standpoint, right? So it's so difficult right now to hire in any industry, but especially in consumer products. So what the different innovations that you're doing, whether it's within a restaurant or within your delivery or within your distribution, where you're starting to use more automation, even just the contactless order when you go into certain restaurants where you don't actually have to go to the person at the register, but you can just order it in there if you feel more comfortable going into the store and want that experience, or being able to do that from your car, or even being able just to say from the app itself, I'm going to walk in and get it, or please bring it out to me. I mean, I will tell you, personally, I never ever thought I'd be somebody who online ordered groceries, right? I like to touch my food. I like to see my food. I like to look at the prices. And now it's all we do. And part of it was because we had to, because of the pandemic, but because it's so convenient and they remember my order, the app remembers my order, the things that I order most often. Again, knowing and collecting that data on that ultimate consumer and making it as easy as possible for them to enjoy your product or brand it's just so key. And it's getting easier and easier to do. And I think that's the exciting thing for so many of our businesses in this space. You don't have to be one of the biggest players in the world to have this kind of connectivity. The technology is there and the ease of it is there. And it's just now creating the best experience for your customer.
I want to remind those watching that if you have a question for our expert panelists, make sure when you post it in the chat, you do it for everyone so that we can see it, and we'll be sure to pass those along. I want to ask a follow-up to all of you. You said you weren't shopping online for groceries before. Now we've all got a comfort level with it, but are most of your customers still doing it? What are consumers doing right now? Are they showing signs of returning to their pre-pandemic habits, or are you finding that the new practices that we adopted in the last year and a half are sticking? Gay, do you want to start that one? Or Karen, go ahead. You go ahead. Tell us first what you're seeing on a.
So what we're seeing is really kind of a combination, right? So if it's something that is really kind of unspectacular and you don't need to feel it, touch it, smell it for you to get it, and the timeliness is something that you prefer, you are going to continue to do that. We saw as things open in the summer, really, when you look at restaurant traffic, people were tired of being cooped up. But it doesn't mean that people stopped cooking at home anymore either, right? So the normal everyday things, people are still cooking. There have been relationships that they've made electronically too with different brands from the center of the store, of learning how to cook and new recipes and things along those lines that have really made that kind of a normal thing. You still have a nervousness too of going in public. So none of that has really gone away. It has been reduced a little bit, but what's bringing people out is that personal experience. So whether it's at a restaurant where maybe it's a food or an item that you just don't know how to cook at home or don't do well, you're going out to do that, or maybe that particular restaurant has something that nobody else has. Same with your shopping too. If you could order it and return it in store, or those types of things. People, at the end of the day, having that option is what is getting consumers coming back to those particular brands and experiences.
Great.
And sometimes it's just that opportunity to get out and about, right? Because they've been inside for so long, or they want that experience. So, several of our restaurants, we have the kiosks where the customer can order without having interaction from somebody helping them, place their order digitally inside, but they really just want the opportunity to kind of sit inside and have a little different environment around them than what they've seen, or for the months that they ate inside their car, for those types of things. So we continue to see that. Obviously, drive-through continues to be very, very strong, and certainly something that's growing, but we cannot in any way, shape, or form discount those delivery channels, because that's where the growth is coming from. And those deliveries are growing exponentially.
And Gay, when you talk about deliveries, you're talking about the DoorDashes and Uber Eats, all of those third-party services.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. I'm curious, is it different with coffee? Or is anyone doing that, Matt? Or what are you seeing in terms of traffic patterns?
There's a lot of similarity to what both Karen and Gay mentioned. We have seen, as consumers' mobility increases, which happened a bit over the summer, patterns, meaning when they show up during the day, which days of the week they show up, looked maybe more like 24 months ago. As mobility reduces and people are at home more, then you see a shift, and they might come out later in the morning, or the afternoons become more prevalent. The weekends become outsized. And so we're trying to be as nimble as we can with respect to, there's a lot of changing external context that's influencing, how guests are getting out. But I totally agree that they still want to come out, they still want to engage and, get their, whatever it is, groceries, et cetera. For coffee specifically, I think we offer handcrafted drinks that are maybe hard to make at home, or people don't want to make at home, or they can't, whatever the case may be. And so it's a way to come out and get something that's unique, and it's not necessarily achievable at home, and it can feel like a treat. And so we, the flexibility in being able to go through the drive-through or pick it up at curbside is something that's very important for us to make sure it's really convenient and quick for our guests. And then with respect to delivery, we do offer delivery. We are on board with one of the delivery aggregators. It's a smaller part of our business, I would say, than food, or a restaurant that's primarily food-based. We're primarily beverage company, and it's just less prevalent to have coffees delivered. But it is a capability that we stood up early last year, and then radically accelerated in April, and added more stores throughout all of our markets. So we continue to have that capability. I would say we're more focused on our own app and the various ways that a consumer could pick up at our stores, and ensuring that it delivers on everything they're looking for, which is what we've talked about. It's contactless, it's quick, but you can still walk in and engage with a barista if that's what you choose to do. And there are some guests who really value that as part of the experience.
When you all think about, kind of what we've learned in this time, how our habits have changed, maybe temporarily, maybe permanently, or just, trends accelerated. If each of you, imagine this, was to open your own new concept, food or beverage, okay? I know your bosses love you, you're all staying put, but let's just say for a second, just on the side, a little side hustle, you're opening something new. What would be your must-haves? I mean, must have a drive-through lane, must have, must have an app on day one. Like, what are the things that you think are no longer, like, they are just non-negotiables for any company starting out today? Karen, do you want to start?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say that definitely I would have a good ERP system as well as an app. And the reason why is that you can lay your store out however you want. You have to have a drive-through, you have to figure out delivery and quality, et cetera. But you have to be able to understand your costs. You have to be able to understand your procurement to be able to deliver that product to the client the way you need to. So I'm a huge, and maybe that's my accountant hat too, but I'm a huge proponent on making sure that I have the data collection that I need, because if you're heading down the wrong path or something's, with all the different things that have been happening, and especially as we're watching prices really skyrocket, and companies having to make decisions on how are you going to pass that price along, or are you going to be able to withstand that, and really all those, we're seeing all over the place, right? The consumer price index is high. People are starting to worry about inflation, things along those lines. And so at some point, yes, everybody wants the experience, but you have to be able to control those costs as well. You have to be able to train your people well. You have to really understand what that consumer wants. So my first thing I would have is a great data system, so that I'm able to make decisions to bring that experience to the customer.
Very practical.
Kind of nerdy too, sorry, not super glamorous, but
very on brand, Karen. Thank you. Gay, what would you do?
So after you have all of that in location, then I certainly would be on the avenues that we have seen growth in, certainly have been around the digital presence, the app, the social media, a facility that easily gets people in and out in a manner that meets all of their needs, as well as our needs, from bottlenecks, from weather, from all of those types of things. Something that would be, really easy for the consumer to use. And, location is absolutely key when it comes to all of that. And there's so many ways that is communicated now, obviously, through Google, through Maps, through all of those generators. You have to have that presence, because the younger generation, that's all they use to find you.
Right. Great advice. Matt, you've had plenty of time now. What kind of restaurant are you opening? What are you plotting? And what would you say is a non-negotiable these days in starting something new?
I think the non-negotiable for me would be, an incredible team. And so everything about the process to attract, train, retain an incredible team that will ultimately, engage with your consumers, whether it's, by preparing what they're going to maybe come in and contactlessly order and take away, or have that face-to-face interaction. And as I reflect on, the last, a year and a half or so, Caribou's team has been incredible, incredibly resilient. And so I think that it's just, for me, the non-negotiable would be the right team in place that can deliver what your brand's experience is meant to be for your guests. And, they're committed to the success. And then, of course, everything with respect to data collection and convenience, very, very important. But for me, the team needs to be, as committed to the success as kind of, everyone wants them to be. So it's the whole process for attracting and retaining the team.
Right. And it is a good reminder and maybe a little bit comforting that, I mean, the data is only as good as the people who can analyze it and do something with it. So humans are still relevant to a successful business.
Absolutely, Matt. I'll partner with you whenever you want.
So obviously pivoting and improvising and quick changing has become the name of the game. It's very difficult to plan ahead, as businesses typically like to do in the middle of a pandemic. I'm curious, is it getting any easier at this point for all of you? I mean, we still are getting curveballs, we have variants, we have rates that are fluctuating. Do you feel at this point, when you look at your numbers, you look at all of the behaviors and the analytics, do you think those are patterns that are going to stick, or do you still think we're in weird, wonky times? Karen, you want to start?
I do think it's going to be weird and wonky for the next couple of years, right? I do think you have a few things going on. You have a real split economically between the haves and the have-nots, right? So, so what is that going to mean moving forward? We've had a particularly large amount of government intervention to keep the economy going, and at some point, the economy is going to have to go without all of that. And so how is that going to affect things? That's something that's up in the air. I do think as is the supply chain disruption that we've seen, and it's causing really high prices all over the place, whether it's your packaging, whether it's your ingredients, whether it's your transportation, that's still going to take some time to settle down. This was a really, really big disruption, and it's never going to be like it was. And I think what it's done is it's taught the consumer ultimately that nothing is business as usual, right? And so you really have to, the best thing you can do is be as nimble and as creative as possible, because you can be proactive, but you also have, everybody's gotten very good at being reactive as well. So a good combination of reacting to the things that you didn't plan for, but planning as much as you can. I don't know if that is that much different than pre-pandemic, but I think the speed of it really is. And the speed of play is just at a level that I don't think is going to slow down in the near future.
Matt, what does planning look like at Caribou these days? And has it changed?
There's certainly still a lot of volatility, as Karen mentioned, and that we work to manage that as well as we can. And I think what's maybe different now than 24, 36 months ago is the level of scrutiny that are applied to the contingencies that we attempt to put in place. We have great supplier partners. We have an incredible, coffee supply chain that has served us very well over many years. The disruption is hard for everyone, and we want to make sure that our teams and our guests are getting what they want when they want it. And so we've applied a lot of energy to developing contingencies, everything from backup ingredients, backup suppliers, alternate transportation, to the extent that we can, so that we have backups when something goes unexpectedly. And what's been I think really hard for the teams to manage is it's very unpredictable, like which part is going to go off track on any given day, because so much of it is abnormal right now. And so we don't have a contingency for everything, but we try to focus on the most important aspects of our business and our guests and teams experiences, and hedge where we can. And as it relates to planning over a longer time frame, we just continue to focus on kind of three things that we talk about always at Caribou, which is a team, guests, and quality. So if we're working on one of those three kind of tenets, it feels right, and we think it's going to deliver the results that we want.
Thanks for that. Gay, what does planning look like at Border Foods?
Probably pretty similar. There will continue to be changes. I think that the changes have maybe slowed down a little bit, particularly from a team member perspective, when policies and procedures were changing at one point daily, if not weekly, on how we needed to react and take care of things. And I think that has gotten a little bit easier from a team perspective. To the same point that Matt made from a supply chain, you have to get creative. You have to be able to alleviate those stresses for your team, for your consumer, by having the products available. And you had to think outside the box as to what did that mean? And that might mean, in some cases, securing your own transportation, refrigerated trucks, and doing different things like that. And so I think that there's been a great deal of learnings as we've gone along the way. As you look at how do you continue to grow and to develop the business, I think you have to be proactive in how do you have the equipment and the materials necessary to do that? Because the things that are standard for us, whether that's an equipment line, a coffee machine, an HVAC unit, require months of advance notice. And in order to be successful and in order to be prepared, you have to be looking ahead at what that is. And I think that that's key as well.
Right. I want to talk about some of those struggles right now that seem to be so pervasive no matter what you're selling or making, and that is supply chain and workforce. So flip a coin, which one we take first. Let's go workforce, because we actually have a great question from Mary Beth, who's listening in. Thank you for posing it. Her question is, what are your thoughts on the workforce struggles and shortages? Are you starting to have an easier time finding employees? Do you think it's going to get easier in the months ahead? I know that you're not all directly tied to hiring practices, but if you can talk just in general about, what your companies are seeing, I think people would love to commiserate.
Well, I'll go ahead and start in regards to the labor piece. And I think that there's a lot of components that fall and go into what does this look like. So as we talk a lot about how our business has changed and how the consumer insights have changed, the lives of our team members have changed just as much, personally and professionally. So it changes at work by all of the things that we say do today and don't do tomorrow, and having products and not having products, to them playing different roles in their life outside of work, right? Caring for an ill parent or somebody at home, being a teacher, doing all of those types of things. So I think part of the success that you have in managing that labor force is the flexibility to understand all of those factors that are happening with your team outside of the things that they can control, whether it's in the restaurant or outside of the restaurant. So I think that that's huge. That flexibility, that leadership is what's going to keep the employees staying at a particular location, having fun at work, making sure that they're enjoying themselves, creating the environments. This digital channel and this digital world also appeals to a great deal of the people that we employ. The younger generation isn't used to having face-to-face contact. They're not used to doing a lot of those types of things. So it appeals to them as well, in order to kind of stay relevant with their lives and what's happening. The good news is applicant flow is increasing, which is nice to see. Doesn't mean that it's going to take away all the other challenges that come with that, from the commodity costs, compression, all of those types of things, and those are going to continue to be there, and we'll have to work through each of those situations.
Great perspective. Matt, anything to add?
Gabe shared many excellent points and a lot of consistency, I would say, in what we've experienced. The one thing that I might add is something that we've worked on with respect to recruiting and hiring, is to make the process faster and really just easier for not only candidates who would like to work with Caribou, but also the teams who are ultimately hiring. And so looking at new ways and including technology to, again, speed that process up so that we get faster to the point where a hiring manager can talk with a potential team member and determine if it's the right move for both parties. And so that process has gone from longer than we'd like to very fast, because of the work of our recruiting and related. So that's the one probably add I would have. In terms of Caribou's experience, that's been very beneficial, is to just accelerate the timeframes between initial reach out and then ultimately a conversation and, an offer if that's where it leads to.
Right. Well, again, though, I mean, it just shows that out of challenges, you come up with new innovations and speed things up and find new ways to do things. Karen, is that similar to what you're hearing from your clients?
Yeah, and I think the other point to think of too is it's not just the hiring, but it's the retention and the onboarding, right? So, I think a lot of companies in the past have spent time, how do we attract, and the attraction of the employees has been the big pull. And I think what we have to consider is people, when they take jobs, now want to feel that they're a part of something, right? It's not just a paycheck. Especially the younger generation is really feeling that way, that they want to, it's not just earning money, but they want to make a difference, right? Our consumers feel that way about the products that they're consuming and buying, and they feel that way about the work that they're doing too. So I think training programs and retention programs are really, really important as we kind of get into this workforce of the future, because they want to be challenged, they want to learn, and they want to feel like they're making a difference. And so no matter what your industry is, I think it's really good to explore that, because if it's just going to come down to $15 an hour versus 16, et cetera, the giant Amazons of the world, or a lot of your health and medical, if you have even like a healthcare distribution or some kind of factory along the lines that's close to your restaurant, they're going to go make the 20. If it's just for the money, they're going to go where the money goes. And so you have to make that experience for the employee just as good as you do for your customers.
Well, then the other one, it's supply chain. And it used to be something that, we only used that term in really, in conversations about manufacturing and logistics. But today, everybody's talking about the supply chain, and anybody who's tried to order anything has encountered some kind of delay in places that you would never even expect. So how is that? How are those issues impacting your businesses, and any innovations or insights or silver linings that come out of some of the current struggles that every business is experiencing right now? Matt?
I would say certainly, Caribou is subject to everything that likely everyone on this call is experiencing. What it's meant for us is we've made some decisions about carrying more inventory in some cases, eliminating items from our assortment in some cases to allow us and our suppliers to focus on more important or higher volume items. So really, I would say just broadly, it has forced us to further increase our focus on everything from menu architecture to order frequency to how much inventory we want to have in our warehouses. All things that are standard practice, I would say, but we've had to focus maybe more on particular aspects of that depending on where we are in supply. And then certainly cost pressure is it's here. It's something that we are constantly evaluating to determine how long might it last. And that is again ongoing practice for the business, but it's taken a very high focus right now. As it relates to kind of at large supply chain, it's what I mentioned earlier. It's really thinking about how do we create a backup for some of our most critical items to ensure that we, minimize or eliminate the possibilities for disruption for our teams and guests. Because as both Gay and Karen have mentioned, it's incredibly problematic for teams if they're stressed out that they don't have the product that they need to serve the guests, and then they have to explain to someone why they can't deliver whatever it is that guest is looking for. Then that leads to, it's not a great work experience. So we're really trying to think about this totality, and focus on the most important things, knowing that there's likely going to be some shortages. So I think that's probably been the biggest learning for us, is really narrow the focus. Guests have given us a lot of grace through this period to know that we are going to be out of stock on some things. And we try to just limit that and make sure that for the key things, we don't have that scenario.
Don't yell at the cashier. It's not their fault, right? Lots
Exactly.
of contingency these days and lots of patience needed. That's for sure. No matter what experience you're going for, even if it's about speed. Gay, anything that you want to add as far as supply chain?
No, I don't think there's anything too new to add based upon those comments. The only one thing I guess I would say is that it does come down to making it that right environment for the team, which then translates into the right environment for the guests. And certainly there are those that react positively, and there's those that react not so positively. And we want to eliminate any of those situations that we can have. It's just about planning ahead. It really is. You have to look ahead. You have to be able to invest, a few months ahead in regards to what that looks like.
Yeah. Karen, any advice that you'd give?
Yeah, I think a big part of it again too is even thinking when we're talking about kind of the commodity side of things, is it's been kind of a crazy year, and I think someone's going to have a question in the chat about it too, as far as weather related incidences and things along those lines. So really having a handle on where your product is coming from, who's growing it, making it, who are those vendors that you're working with. Those relationships are really invaluable, and that's going to help weather a lot of the storm when it comes to these shortages, because it's going to be there for a little while. And depending on what you're making and producing, some of it could be permanent. We have a client who, for example, is in oranges, and they grow oranges, and the volume of oranges that they grew 5 years ago is significantly lower than it is now. And when you start to look at things like weather and climate and different, things that are happening that way, that's not just pandemic related, that's something that's going to continue to happen. And so how are we, using our resources the best way we know how is going to be really important for businesses to plan in the future.
Right. I can't believe that Thanksgiving is next week. What are your holiday predictions? What do you think is going to happen? Are people going to be out in full force? Are there going to be lines? Is there going to be an increase in interest? Or what are you bracing yourselves for? Matt, do you want to start?
It is incredible that it's so close. I would say we set our holiday product about a week and a half ago, and the early reads from us show that guests have they've come out, they are loving our classic trio of holiday beverages. So we didn't introduce any new product this year. We went just with some beloved favorites, and which is very similar to what we did last year. We're limiting kind of innovation to ensure that we stay focused. And so for holiday, what we're seeing is guests are coming out, they're really gravitating toward, in Caribou's environment, it's really classic heritage, beloved items. And then also we're seeing the gift purchasing has started earlier than ever. We primarily a beverage location, but we do sell merchandise and things that serve as gifts. And we've seen that accelerate faster than it has in previous years. I think part of that is perhaps guests' excitement for the change in the seasons. Part of it is some nervousness about the supply chain. As we've talked previously, you have to order earlier than ever to get your items on time for various holiday events. And so I think there's going to be some good in-store activity earlier than maybe we'd anticipate in prior years, where typically in-store pops after online has had its peak. So that's how I see it for right now. But we're very pleased with how holidays started, and we're excited for the next couple of weeks.
Great. Gay, what about for you?
We tend to see an increase this time of the year with mobility and people out and about and all of that. We've all heard the warnings: order ahead, shop early, all of that, and shop online. I think that there's a great deal of that happening and occurring, but there's still a large percentage that are out there and want the opportunity to experience the holiday season. And maybe they didn't have the typical holiday season last year and want that opportunity. So, we anticipate good things, and delivery will continue to be strong. I don't know that that's going to be as impacted by that holiday timeframe.
Right. Karen, holiday predictions from your point of view?
So holiday is here. Holiday shopping probably started about 3 weeks ago, like people had mentioned, with the supply chain nervousness, that's happening. I think what's going to be different this holiday than in past holidays is you're not going to have the level of Black Friday deals and those kinds of things that people particularly wait for, especially next week. I personally have a husband who loves to Black Friday shop, so I think he's going to be really disappointed this year. But I think again, because there are some inventory inventory challenges and things along those lines. And because prices are where they are, there aren't going to be those huge deals like you've had before. So I think overall, you're going to see consumers probably spending a little more and buying a little less, not because it's not necessarily empty shelves, but just because the prices are going to be higher and they are going to be looking for those deals. We also predict that you're going to see a lot of gift card buying, right? So for the last minute people who, that's how I am, I'm always a last minute shopper. I have a feeling that it's going to be a lot in the gift card. And again, people are looking for those experiences, right? So everyone got used to living with a little bit less, right? You don't necessarily need, the business clothes as much as you need it anymore, or different things like that. And so now it's more of, that treat yourself and what's that special kind of thing that's going to make a difference when you're buying a gift for someone. So I think it's going to be a little bit different this year, but those are our predictions.
And are you seeing already that consumers are heeding the warnings? I mean, have they started shopping earlier? Is there less procrastinating now?
I think the early shoppers are shopping earlier. I don't know necessarily that the consumers that are always the procrastinators, that's a lifelong habit that's hard to break. And so so I do think, again, but again too, I think people are much more comfortable online shopping, and where in the past it was kind of I'm going to wait for that Black Friday deal, or I'm going to wait for Amazon Prime Day, or all those kinds of things that inspired people to shop. Even if you look at advertising now too, a lot of the consumer products companies are having to be very tailored where they spend their promotional dollars. And so, so it's causing in some cases people to buy a little bit sooner because of when they are running those promotions and how carefully they are running those promotions this year.
Great insight. I'm going to let Kyle from our audience ask the final question. He wants to know what your predictions are about some of the delivery services. We know that's an important part of your business, especially at Border Foods, Gay. Do you expect that there are going to be minimums going forward? Is it going to get more limited in terms of what's offered, or is it the reverse? Are you all about just opening it up and making it as easy as possible?
We're more on the open it up and make it as easy as possible. We have several, promotions, advertisements, things that we do with those different aggregates that really drive the consumer to, purchase, do it within certain time frames, all of those types of things. It's a real shift in the business. We are very much not the early morning coffee place, but more the late night location. And it is very appealing to, our consumers to be able to have that as an option. And certainly with our new restaurant location and having 4 drive-through lanes, our intent is to be able to get through, the most amount of people that we can and be able to service them as well as those drivers. So I think delivery is the way of the future. It's going to continue to grow and to grow and to grow, as well as mobile, people placing their own orders coming in, curbside, which was mentioned a little bit. Consumers, they're all about the convenience now, whether that's the grocery shopping we talked about or whatever. They want it when they want it, how they want it, and they just want to go grab it and go.
Right. Right. Well, great insights from all of you. Really appreciate it. So many great takeaways and things to think about for anybody who is working in this space or any kind of consumer business. It'll be so interesting to see what happens next and to see the next innovations from all of you. Thank you so much to our panelists, Karen, Gay, and Matt. We really, really appreciate your time and your expertise. And I know our audience does as well, as they're all virtually clapping for you right now. We want to be sure to thank our event partner, RSM, for making this event possible. We want to thank all of you for joining us and for participating as well. A recording of this conversation, the webinar, will be available online in the next few days. So please share it with your colleagues and friends and see what you can dream up, and we'll share the next time around. We hope you join us again soon, and everybody have a great afternoon and a happy holiday season. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.